It is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing two legends in dentistry. On your left, we'll start with on your right. Raise your hand, Eric. Okay, so that's Eric. He's on the, gosh, you're both brunettes. How do we describe the blue shirt? Dr. Eric Pulver received his bachelor degree of science in biology from the University of Western Ontario in Canada and his doctor of dental surgery from the University of Toronto in '89. Dr. Pulver trained as a hospital-based general practice resident at Mount Sinai Hospital in Toronto. He then furthered his studies as a clinical fellow in the Osteointegration Dental Implant Unit, Department of PROS at the University of Toronto under George Zarb. He received his diploma in oral and maxillofacial surgery from Northwestern University in '95. He has served as an assistant professor at Northwestern University Dental School. He has been a past director of oral surgery at Michael Reese Hospital, where he was responsible for resident education. He served as a member of the craniofacial cleft lip and palate team associated with the Shriners Organization. He held the position of clinical associate professor and chief of oral and maxillofacial surgery at the University of Chicago Hospitals and Medical Centers from '99 to 2006. Dr. Pulver was a team oral and maxillofacial surgeon for the Chicago Blackhawks in the National Hockey League from 1996 to 2006. Is that just because you're an oral surgeon and the tooth was already knocked out, you knew you wouldn't even have to pull it?
Absolutely. I just got to watch the game. That's why it was good for me.
And on the left, another genius legend in dentistry, Jeremy Krell, DMD, MBA. He's a general dentist and currently oversees provider and clinical initiatives at Quip, the oral health and subscription electric toothbrush company. Jeremy also practices dentistry part-time, sits on the board of healthcare and dental startups, including Denti.AI, Floss Bar, PatientPlus, Verena Solutions, and Voyant, and is an angel investor. Jeremy has a 15-year proven track record with startups through several successful multi-million-dollar fundraises and acquisitions. He started his career with 3 web and graphic design startups and moved into a luxury good and commodity venture, Dormaid, for college students. He later founded a venture incubator, CEO in a Box, and led strategic provider innovation and development at Oscar Health Insurance, following his MBA at Chicago Booth. Jeremy lives with his wife, daughter, and a pug in Jersey City, New Jersey. He enjoys playing and following professional tennis, having attended all U.S. Opens since he was born. Jeremy is a foodie and has been vegan for 10 years before it was cool. You helped some other guests we've had on the show. Eva Sagez of the Floss Bar. You're just quite the man. Jeremy N. Krell, DMD, MBA. Well, gentlemen, thanks for joining the show today.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thank you very much for having us.
I think we got to start the show obviously with the big news thing that the markets have tanked. They were actually triggered today. I know the coronavirus is a big deal, but you guys, between the three of us, we got a lot of college here. Is this hype? Is this just going to be a regular flu system? 80,000 Americans die of the flu? Or Jeremy, you're in New York. That's got to be ground zero for international travel. Are you guys worried about this much?
I'm super worried about our dental shows being canceled. I'll tell you that. But to me, and talking to some of the epidemiologist friends that I have, I think the numbers are actually being pretty underreported. Even those here in the U.S., I think a lot more people carry symptoms, are not actually symptomatic, and so this is potentially looking a bit more potent than it is. I think there's a fear factor associated.
Yeah, it's really hard to say, but I think that if we can activate and take precautions, in a reasonably expedient fashion, we may be able to reduce the impact. And I have read some information out in Asia when the World Health Organization went out to check it all out, and they said that part of the use of WeChat, because it was so well spread, helped to contain the virus and monitor public transportation. It helped to reduce transmission because they weren't using currency, and they were able to really get the population to take it seriously and control them in a way that they weren't sure anywhere else in the world could do. But I think that if we take it seriously and look at things in the proper way, maybe we can reduce the spread, and certainly there'll be some unfortunate outcomes, but we'll have to be very aware of what we're doing.
My personal problem is I had no idea how much I touched my face. I did not know that until I was just a week ago. I'm sitting there reading this up at touch your face. I'm realized, my gosh, I'm always touching my face. So, artificial intelligence, it's kind of one of those things where, I mean, its roots go clear back to the 50s and IBM, but it seems like something's changed with AI. It's no longer this thing from 1950 for the last 70 years. It seems like in dentistry, in just the last year or two, it's the Phoenix Rising. What happened in AI for this big breakout after 70 years?
I think that some of the reasons that we're seeing it more are now because of the development of the GPUs in the computers, our ability to break down data and information and share it more efficiently, and particularly with computer vision. Because computer vision, now we really wouldn't be able to do what we were doing unless it went back to those first meetings when people at Dartmouth were, and even before that, I think initially they thought they could do it in a 2-month project, and it's still going on. But I think without standing on their shoulders to get to where we are, we wouldn't be able to move ahead so quickly. And I think that with our ability to evaluate radiographs, and radiographic interpretation is so vital to what we do in dentistry, because almost all revenue generating and diagnostic procedures in dentistry are based on a radiographic interpretation. So it's kind of lent itself well to a window into using AI and machine learning in dentistry, together with the fact that we have pretty much a technology revolution going on in dentistry, whether it's scanning or intraoral cameras. I think in general, most of my dental colleagues are tech forward. They're interested in the gadgets at home. They're interested in bringing it into their offices. And I think that it's a welcoming group of people to be able to utilize the technology within.
And they said that when humans read an X-ray, they couldn't even see 40% of the lesion.
Yeah, it's interesting. The computer vision, going even back to Logicon, was helpful, but Logicon wasn't using machine learning to continually improve with increased data points being entered into the algorithms in the system. So I think that we're able to look at the images a little bit more accurately now using the computer vision, and we find up to about 30 to 40% of the early incipient and moderate lesions aren't found. And one thing that we really feel is important at Denti.AI is our evidence-based algorithms. We've had academically annotated algorithms. So we've worked at the University of Louisville, and we've published a paper. It was in the Louisville Research 2019 competition. It won first prize in the clinical research. And the fellow doing that is now going to the IADR and the AADR meeting to present there. He got selected to do that. And it found, interestingly enough...
Is that posted on your website, Denti.AI?
I don't know if it's up there yet. But I certainly can share that with you.
What would I Google?
I don't know. Jeremy, do you know if that's online? I'm not sure.
We'll have to follow up.
Yeah.
We can follow up.
Send it to me after the show.
Yeah, so we found that incipient and moderate lesions were found at almost 50% higher findings in the trial that was done than the maxillofacial radiologists. And we thought that it was really important to take these findings and caries identification and not just say it looks cool, but to really base it on some of the sharpest minds in our field. Because I think if we're going to be ushering in this new technology to the dental marketplace, we want to make sure it's validated and that it works well and it's not just crowdsourced. So we've been very careful for each of our findings to do that. So we worked with Bill Scarf at the University of Louisville. We worked with Don Tyndall at UNC. And although we do multiple findings of non-pathological and pathological findings, including, I might mention, going back to Dmitry Tuzov is our founder, and he's from Russia, really interesting person, a genius when it comes to programming and really, one day you'll have to have him on.
I'd love to.
And Dimitri worked with Michael Bornstein, and Michael was at the University of Hong Kong at the time. And they published an article on using panoramic films, and it was identification and detection and not automated numbering. And that's what we based our smart chart automated charting algorithms on. So we're able to take a panoramic image and within 7 to 10 seconds or less, identify non-pathological and pathological findings. So we can see where there's missing teeth. We can see where crowns are present, endos, overfills, underfills, bone loss, and a whole number of items. And that was published, that you can find at PubMed. That's Tuzoff, Tuzoff. And it's just if you put AI and tooth detection, that should pop up. And that was sort of a groundbreaking published article. It was in the British Journal of Radiology, I think, or the Academy of Radiology just recently in March. And I think that we're able to use the radiographic images and use these validated studies to move forward and slowly use it into clinical practice. And that's what we're beginning to do now. We have a sort of a suite of solutions, enterprise, individual dental office, a lighter version. We have dashboards that will collect key performance indicators. We'll be able to, we are also able to work with insurers as well. So there's a whole kind of explosion of opportunities out there, and it's been fascinating and really interesting to follow along.
You kind of walked into a glass door when you mentioned PubMed, because that's big time in the news, where the American Dental Association wrote a letter to President Trump. It said COVID-19 could kill the for-profit science publishing model. The change would effectively nationalize the valuable American intellectual property that we produce and force us to give it away to the rest of the world for free, according to a December 18 letter to President Trump signed by the American Dental Association. And it was picked up by the LA Times. Do you think it used to be, governments and state schools would do all this research and they'd pay the whole lion's share, but then they'd have a deal with a publisher, and the publisher would get all that information to put in their journals and all that kind of stuff. And now with COVID-19 coming out, the rest of the world's saying, forget all that crap in PubMed and everything, just make it all open source. Do you think COVID-19 is going to finally make PubMed a free thing to the people whose tax dollars actually paid for it?
Well, it's really interesting. I am part of a couple groups in AI, and one of the groups has gone out and tried to collect information on COVID-19 and trying to see how can we use AI in this community to find things using natural language processing, to look at charts, to read things and look at different trends, and to listen to calls, because sometimes you may have 500,000 calls coming into a center, and some of them you have to follow through, and some of them you can't, and you can't really keep up with all of them. And we've also seen where some AI that's run through it has found early increases in respiration and respiratory rate in patients when you're comparing with the flu. So there's certain simple findings. We don't know really how to put it all together, but your point being, this is sort of on an open forum, and it's, if you can share it and you can share it quickly, maybe it can make an impact, and that may ultimately have an impact on PubMed. However, I think that a peer-reviewed article and understanding the bias of an article when it's published and written, if the institutions maintain those standards, is really important, because we have to trust somewhere. We have to expect that people are following those standards. So it could be a combination, and that's what's exciting about the future, is we never quite know where it's going to go. We can be curious about following those opportunities, and certainly we've seen a lot of change over the last 30 years in the dental industry. So maybe we could have an improved change because of this unfortunate situation.
Eric, I'll add to that. If we just have, just a moment, I think AI is, a really interesting term. It's become a very loaded term. It means so many different things to so many different people out there. Denti.AI has been in our space of, helping to read radiographs and provide valuable information about the pathological findings therein. But it means a different thing to a lot of different companies, and it's so nice to see others start to kind of jump on the bandwagon and join us. And I think the point around PubMed, we have a lot of education to do. We need to educate dentists and their practices about all the benefits of AI, and with any new thing, we also have to kind of dispel some of those myths as well. And I think opening things up to whatever extent possible, making some of this valuable information available helps us, and helps all the companies in this space, including those older and who have been around, and situated themselves like us, as well as the new ones that have kind of joined in.
It's kind of interesting how a lot of people associate AI with tele-dentistry. Those are kind of linking together. Do you see AI and tele-dentistry go hand in hand, or are these two separate issues?
I mean, I can speak to that a little bit. You mentioned Eva Sadeh, and a shout out to Floss Bar here, an organization I'm involved with as well. It certainly can be. They're out there doing preventative and diagnostics. They're taking dentistry to the people. That often involves, digital and portable X-rays, something like a Nomad, and then using a platform to be able to analyze those, giving insight to providers who may be off-site, depending on the state. So I certainly think AI could be, highly involved and highly lucrative to kind of taking community health approach to dentistry.
How's Eva doing?
Oh, Eva's doing great. She is plugging away on sales and really growing the organization, 20, 30 plus states, and a few different models, operating in the office setting, a fleet of vehicles, popping up pods all over, and kind of bringing a great brand to mobile dentistry.
And you help Simon and Ever.
Yeah. Yep. I'm the dental director
founder
at
and
Quip.
CEO of Quip.
Yep. I'm the dental director at Quip. So Simon kind of took me on very early. I was able to provide insight to our provider channel. So provider marketing, provider sales, provider support, all the way through to a variety of different business development initiatives within the dental industry, clinical studies, and more. So been heavily involved with Quip for the past few years.
And so, when do you think that the dentist listening? Well, first of all, your journey. I mean, my gosh, where did you? What was going on in the busy life of an oral surgeon? I mean, you guys. That is one of the most brutal jobs, and you're in charge of the residency. I'm reading your resume, and I thought you didn't have time to sleep, let alone I'll pick up a dental AI company on the side. Where does this come from?
I think I'm always curious about what's happening next, and I feel that you don't know what you don't know, and I feel I'm quite artificially intelligent, and I think the more I can learn and move ahead, the more contribution that in general we can help make in oral health and systemic health. So what happened was, after I'd been in a lot of the academic situations, I felt that we could group together with a number of specialists and general dentists and lab technicians and go back down to Indiana University and teach an interdisciplinary treatment planning course. And it was really rewarding to do and to learn from all the interdisciplinary ideas and learn from the students. And in doing this, we tried to take some of the concepts from, and forgive me if I leave a few out, but Frank Spears or John Coyce or Gerald Cheech or Vince Kokich, and you name it, a whole number of people that we were exposed to. And we were lucky enough to maybe have learned from our mistakes, and we thought it would be nice to give back to the students to avoid the same thing from happening. So we created this course, and through the course, we started creating checklists and a process of critical analysis and evidence-based decision-making. And I started getting very interested in some of the incubators in Chicago, M-Hub and Matter Health. My son was there in the summer working at these places. And I started getting involved in some of the startups and thought it was exciting and fantastic. And I always had things I was doing on the side, whether it was a t-shirt, sweatshirt company or a changing incandescent light bulbs to, fluorescent. There's always something I was always doing. So by doing this course, I fell upon machine learning, and I started to learn more about machine learning. And it was on a trip back to Toronto, and Toronto is one of the hubs for machine learning and AI in the world. I was talking to some friends in that space, and I told them what I was interested in doing by trying to take our course and using machine learning, because there's so much information. Howard, I'm sure you found this too, is that when we got out of school, we knew a lot, and it took a little while, a year or so, a year and a half, before a lot of new knowledge came out. And now they're saying that almost in 73 days or so, there's a whole new group of knowledge. Your knowledge is doubling instead of taking 30 years or 20 years or 10 years. So we felt it was hard to keep up with all that information. And I felt as an oral surgeon, I just had to learn oral surgery. And as a general dentist, it's huge, the amount of information that you have to know.
Eric, you kind of use artificial intelligence and machine learning almost like synonyms. You're throwing them both out back and forth.
Yeah.
Are they the same? Are they different?
Well, I probably should say machine learning, because I think that we want to use the algorithms to improve. So if we have the finest annotators, and we're very specific in how we do our annotations, and then we take that ground truth and send it out into a bigger database, we're going to get better results. And they'll keep improving. So we have and we keep track of, this is how I'm going to explain it. We keep track of different groups that would do the annotation. And as the machine learning improves our accuracy and specificity, we can then look at certain groups of annotators and say, we can't use that group anymore, because the machine learning has improved, and maybe it's getting better than a certain subset of annotators that we once used. So, and I think artificial intelligence is more of an umbrella. And I think that you see ads today saying, we use artificial intelligence, but it's really not artificial intelligence. It's really smart computer programming. So I probably, should be more specific with that, but that's how I see that.
Howard, I can add kind of two perspectives to this. One of them is for the average dentist, specialist that's out there that practices like Eric and I. There are a lot of words thrown around: artificial intelligence, machine learning, computer vision. I think what people have kind of envisioned in their minds is the robot that takes over the world or takes over their jobs, right? It's not that. AI is a tool that is meant to help great providers be even better in the quality of care that they're able to deliver. It's something that none of us as dentists are perfect. No human can catch absolutely every single thing, and this is simply meant to illuminate more opportunities to provide the patient better care, which ultimately will feed to having a really great practice for those patients. The other thing I can say is I went to that IDS show in Cologne, Germany, the biggest dental trade show in the world, back in March 2019. I walked away from there saying, there are a few huge growth areas in dentistry. I saw Denti.AI on display in the booth of a very large partner in the radiology industry, and walked away saying, wow, AI is here. It's come, and the market is ready for it. There are kind of two other major areas I saw as well as emerging, and we'll call out those here too. I think one area is the area of live chat, right? Being able to have a human speak to somebody on a website, even having their speech supported by AI, but it's a real human on the other end, and they can even kind of direct schedule if the office would like that to happen, right? You have companies like Simplify out there, and Dr. Ryan Hungate doing things like that. Another one is the dental supply world. It's operated in a very orderly fashion over the last several years, in sort of a very predictable way. But you have people out there disrupting that model. If you look at Dr. Scott Drucker and his brother Jacob Drucker with Supply Clinic, they're out there sort of showing different ways to do it, and they have an enterprise suite available to DSOs. So you walk away from a show like Cologne, Germany, and you see kind of the emerging growth areas with within dentistry. And I think AI is a prominent one, and Denti.AI very, very much at the center of it.
So supply clinic is using AI?
No, so not to necessarily suggest that any of those areas are interconnected with one another. Those are just big, sort of big growth areas emerging in the U.S. in dentistry now.
Who's
Simplified
in charge of Supply Clinic? Who'd you say?
Supply Clinic is led by Dr. Scott Drucker. He's a periodontist, and his brother Jacob Drucker is the CEO.
Okay. So where's the status of dental AI at now? If you go to Denti.AI, what does it look like now?
Well, I wanted to just finish one other thing about your previous question for 1 second. I saw that the radiographic interpretation was a window into this space where one day, and maybe we can get to that in a few minutes, we can help close the oral systemic health links. So as an oral surgeon, I've spent a lot of time in the hospital, and I would see a lot of effects from oral health that was impacting systemic health, and it was often overlooked. And I think that we, as a group, can use machine learning to help highlight the important role that dentists can play in the overall wellness and outcomes and well-being. And I think that that's really what drives me to start at the beginning as an oral surgeon. I'm looking at 2D radiographs because they're everywhere, and we can move along that spectrum of biomarkers and salivary biomarkers and all kinds of really interesting opportunities to impact health. And I think that if we can do that for dentistry, I personally and others have an ability to impact more people than are just visiting us in our office, and in a real significant way. So I just wanted to touch base on that. And in that journey, I met Dimitri in Toronto, and we've been working together for about 3 years and have marched along into dentistry. And then getting back to the question you mentioned, where are we today? We're able to really help improve quality assurance and education. We can also help dentists to be more efficient with their time. Perhaps we can intervene earlier, providing less expensive care. We can look at outcomes and track outcomes. Maybe we're going to be able to, in the future, benefit premiums on doctors that have outcomes that are within a certain range, and we can help improve outcomes that are not in that range. Big DSOs certainly are interested in that. They're hiring many, many young dentists out of school who, I teach a group of dentists. I've been doing it for 15 years at IU, the fourth year students, and they're really talented and they have a tremendous amount of knowledge, and it's that experience part that you want. And as you gain more experience, often you have more patients that are trusting you. But patients don't always know how to evaluate the care that they're getting. And I think that together, machine learning and this whole movement will help to clarify that, calibrate it, bring standardization to the marketplace, which will help elevate our profession, is what I hope, and that's where I see it.
Yeah, and Howard, the reason I joined, obviously I'm involved in multiple companies. I see Denti.AI as the market leader in this space. Eric mentioned, there's FDA clearance for quality assurance, retrospective analysis, and education. That's a very big accomplishment by this team. In addition, multiple clinically validated studies at accredited academic institutions here in the U.S., as well as large partnerships, in multiple different business development areas, from DSOs to those who have the top of the line radiographic viewing softwares, as well as electronic health record softwares, as well as quality assurance in the insurance industry. So this is really kind of a market leading, company that has really kind of founded itself on partnerships with some of the, the biggest brands, the strongest names in the space, and hoping to build kind of trust among the professional community.
So it's started, I see on your website, you go to Denti, Denti.AI. It says you can sign up for a free trial. How long has it been out? Is there revenue coming in, or people using it? What are your early challenges? And by the way, these are no commercials. They didn't pay for anything. But the next time I go to Chicago, I'm gonna go see the Blackhawks and have a beer. How long has the site been up? Is there revenue coming in? Dentists using it? Free trial? Tell me about it.
Yeah, there's certainly a free trial. So your listeners and viewers are welcome to join up. And if they want to put in your name, we'll give them extra TLC. And what we've been working on is validating everything. And we are able to integrate into electronic medical records. So what you'll get on the site is sort of the basic introduction to how AI or machine learning in dentistry using radiographs is helpful to identify decay, and we're limiting what we are using in that beta version. Because ultimately, we want it to work seamlessly with very few clicks and fully integrated to APIs into the electronic medical records. And we've been able to do that successfully with a very large DSO and a number of smaller pilot projects. We have revenue coming in from co-development projects, and we have some very interesting trials going on with some of the largest distributors and EMRs and tech radiology technology groups right now.
And
the findings.
Who's your large DSO?
It's a large one.
Rick Workman, Heartland.
It's one of the top 50. No, I'm joking.
It's probably in Chicago, right?
It's a big one, and it's been a privilege to work with them and to move along. And I think that when they're ready to come out with their announcement, we would love for that to be public. I'm hesitant to jeopardize our relationship with them because it's been so strong and good. But it's a new technology, right? And we're all working to use it in the right way. And it's so important. And I feel it can have such a big impact and change things in such a positive way that we have to be very careful in how we bring it to the marketplace. And we want to bring it as dentists, as a dental professional, to dentists so that we can really use it and understand the power of it and really have it based in, some of the finest minds in our industry should help guide this through. And we need support from everyone, even the viewers. And if they have support and information, we're happy to address it.
Well, that's what, I love what it says. We are looking for early adopters, dentists, radiologists, and researchers who will help us make the service even better. We guarantee free of charge lifetime services, access to the features you help to improve. Sign up for our email newsletter and updates. So that's pretty neat. It says Denti.AI uses cloud-based artificial intelligence that interprets dental images by specially developed machine learning algorithms. Dentists are provided with augmented support in identifying the reported 20 to 40% of undiagnosed conditions. Early detection in dentists, undetected, led to higher treatment acceptance and revenue. So it seems like AI and machine learning, it seems to be all visual. Like I see it at Crown and Bridge Labs, like Glidewell, where they're just trying to see if the margins of the impression. In California, next door to them, I see it in dental insurance, where they just busted a dentist in San Diego because she kept submitting the same X-ray for the same root canal over and over and over. I think she sent in one X-ray for $10,000 for the root canals and is looking at 10 years in jail. So can you make an AI that just makes sure that the X-ray we send in, we haven't sent in before, and that it's a new, fresh one?
Yes, that's a basic that is a basic thing that we do. If you upload an image, it will even say poor quality of the image, because although we've been able to take images off of Google, an image on Google, and run it through, which I wouldn't recommend doing because we can work with any imaging software in the office, but an image just on Google doesn't usually work. So I think that our algorithms will show that we can identify fraud. Yes, we don't market ourselves necessarily just to identify fraud because we do so much more. That's one of the steps, and I think it's an important thing to be able to do. Yeah.
What I'm asking is the future of AI for now going to be things that are more visual? I mean, it seems like, like visual radiographs, visual diagnosis, visual models. Is it more like that as opposed to like taking the dentist all their data from their open dental software and merging it with, say, QuickBooks Pro for financial metrics? Is it more going to be object oriented or as opposed to numbers?
Well, I think that there's an opportunity to move in both those directions. But I think that before you can move off in multiple directions, you have to be really good at your core. And it's very hard to not chase around at all these different opportunities because it keeps me from sleeping. The little sleep I had before, I have less now because there are so many amazing opportunities. And I think that it's this progression that you can start somewhere. You have to become good at it. It has to work well. The user interface, the experience of the provider, the dentist, and has to be accepted and good. And then we can branch off into the areas that you're talking about. And I do believe that there's a lot of amazing things we'll look back on in 2 years and 5 years and in the future, that we never thought existed. Yeah.
How far are we away before? I mean, I do this in my office last week. I mean, you're looking at X-ray, and what I've always done for 32 years in my office is second opinion. That means if I'm in there with the hygienist and she says it's a DO, and I say it's a watch, we have to get one other person, and it's got to be that one of the hygienists or the dentist, and they come in and they're the third person, and that's a tiebreaker. When do you think? How close are we before IA is the tiebreaker, where we just legitimately say, "What's AI say?"
We were definitely going to get to that point, but I think that it would be if you were driving a car and there were stop signs and somebody said, "We now have a light," and it goes red, orange, and green. I bet you for a while they had someone standing there with a stop sign or someone to make sure that the light was working. So how long did it take until we stop and we trust the lights? I think that there's a lot of similarities in other aspects of life that we've accepted in time, but we don't want to come and say, accept it today. We want to say, work with us and try this out. We believe that we've trialed it in the right way. We're bringing it to the market in a trusted fashion. And, go on this journey with us because it's going to take you to some spectacular places. And I think that how you just described it, you bring in a third person, that is how we do our annotations and our ground truthing. We have a number of different people look at it, and it's split up by a number of weeks, and they look at the same images again because we don't always agree with ourselves, let alone other people. And now they bring all the annotators into a room for any one of the ones that they all thought something different on, and they come up with a standard, and that's how we move ahead. Kind of what you're doing in your office is ahead of its time. It's AI in your office, right? Because that's how it is. So you'll have now a second opinion wherever you are, and it should help build efficiency into the model, find things earlier, build trust, and then we can provide care at a reduced cost, we hope.
It's multiple different algorithms running, right? I think everybody has the idea of this one sort of master algorithm or formula. It's multiple algorithms that are running. They can be deployed in ways that are both numerical and metrics based as well as object based. And it's actually a very similar process, just a different application or one of the many algorithms that are running, right? So even when you have, sort of one decision to make, there's actually multiple algorithms. It's like having multiple parties to the decision. And I think, Howard, there's also a kind of a consumer or patient-oriented component to what you're asking as well, right? Because it's not always just the provider that's asking for that second opinion. Sometimes it's the patient, right? I think we've all kind of encountered the patient that's gone to a dental office and, somebody told them they have no cavities, they've gone to another one. Somebody tells them they have many cavities. Speaks to kind of the disagreement that Eric is pointing to. And it'd be nice to, have a sort of fair arbiter there for everybody to lean back on, right, which is the AI. It's also nice, right, for a patient to maybe walk out of an office for a change without something that looks like a bill, right? When was the last time a patient walked out of an office with anything other than a bill, right? It'd be good to have better understanding of what is actually going on with my health what is going on in my mouth, right? What can somebody summarize it for me? Can somebody put it in layman's terms, right? I think these are all things that can be achieved by furthering this direction.
Historically, I wonder what Röntgen would think of this today. My gosh, it was Charles Conrad Röntgen in 1895 that discovered X-rays, but they did not do anything in dentistry. It wasn't until 1954 when the International Longshoremen's and Warehouse Union and Pacific Maritime Association Union. So basically, after World War II, a lot of people say, why was the economy so great then? Well, when you have a war and you destroy Japan, Europe, after World War II, basically the only place that wasn't bombed was the United States, so it had a huge transfer of wealth. The only transfer of wealth to America that even comes close to that, but was slightly smaller, was a transfer of wealth to the Middle East when they discovered oil. But the Longshoremen's Union was a shipyard, so they controlled everything that came in and out of America. And the government had put in price wages, freezes. They thought that was a good idea during World War II. It was a really bad idea. So since the unions couldn't shake them down for more money, they shook them down for dental benefits. And that was in 1954. And at that point, dentists did not even have x-rays. There's hardly any use of dental x-rays in the average dental practice. But when the new Longshoremen's Dental Insurance Club, which you would know now as the Washington State Delta Dental, Oregon Delta Dental, and California Delta Dental, when they covered x-rays at 100%, my God, every dentist bought an x-ray machine. I mean, it was just a domino effect. The whole country went into radiology. So do you think history will repeat itself and dentists aren't going to look at this Denti.AI until there's an economic reason to look at it? Or do you think a lot of people talk about the young kids really just loving technology and will do things for technology's sake, but history says it'll be done for money? Where do you think?
So I think it's kind of both, right? To an extent, right now it does have to be seamless. To Eric's previous point, it has to fit seamlessly into the workflow. So providers across the entire office, whatever their processes, are able to seamlessly integrate it. Not just those that like to, take technology, have this additional thing, and take it apart. On the other hand, there is definitely a financial reason, right? And I think that not only goes to the office's revenue, right, but goes to focusing on the things that matter the most to the patient, because there are limited financial resources on their side, and even looking to improve our own processes in industry, right? You look at the insurance industry, and you brought up the impetus behind X-rays and being submitted. I was blown away to learn that most of these large insurers whom you submit X-rays for often are not actually able to look at those X-rays. I think everybody should kind of listen in clearly to that. Most of the large insurers are not looking closely at those X-rays because they do not have the resources to do it, right? Only a very, very small and select number of them are actually looking at those X-rays, right? Certainly they can help in an appeal or, in a complicated claim, but the majority of those X-rays that are submitted are not read. So how can we actually improve the systems and the processes that we currently have, right? And one way is deploying AI, and how can we make it fit seamlessly into the office? So there's a financial benefit for both the provider and the patient, and it's seamless to use, not just by the techies, but by everyone.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's right, Jeremy. I also think that sometimes we've all had cases where maybe we get a patient referred to us as a specialist, and we're going to place an implant at a site. There may be a periapical radiolucency somewhere in an adjacent tooth. And sometimes that happens. And we often say, we don't need this second opinion, and we don't need this Denti.AI to help us out. But we all make mistakes. The machines make mistakes. We make mistakes. As a human, we're not perfect. We tend to look at evaluating these new technologies as if the human is 100% perfect. But together, we find that using these technologies, along with our clinical decision skill set, we're better off that way. So I think that looking ahead, if most of us all became dentists because, we wanted to make a difference. My father is a pediatric dentist. My uncle is an endodontist. I'm an oral surgeon. It's been in my life for a long time. And I think that if we can say, if you use this quick 7-second solution to help augment your ability to provide excellent care to patients, and you may find things earlier or things that you may have overlooked, that's going to save a lot of grief, but it's also going to build more trust in what we're doing. It's going to allow patients, we hope, to move ahead with their care more efficiently. And we also have quality assurance issues where some of our studies showed large numbers of charts that weren't completed. And it showed significant potential of increase in misdiagnostic findings that could be looked at or treated. So I think that there's a lot of revenue that potentially can be generated by building the efficiencies, and it can also build efficiencies into the insurance reimbursements component as well. So
how come you didn't become a pediatric dentist like your father or an endodontist like your uncle? He was in Toronto?
Yeah, they're both in Toronto. My father's 85. He's on the beach in Florida now. He worked till he was 80 and he loved it. My father wrote the chapter on endo and with one of his residents in Pathway to the Pulp, so the old book. And my uncle's the endodontist. But they've both been very involved in organized dentistry, and they were great role models and mentors to me. And I love kids. I have 3. Mine, they're all growing now, but I kind of first thought oral surgeons got up too early and worked too long, and somehow I became one. And I just loved what they were doing, and that's the direction I went in.
So did any of your 3 kids end up in dentistry?
No, I have a master's of mathematical finance who's doing programming at a cryptocurrency exchange in Toronto. And I have a daughter about to graduate from Tulane and perhaps do a business analytics master's program. And I have one daughter going to college.
Wow, busy.
Yeah, she's about to enter. She's.
So does that mean your son has convinced you that cryptocurrency is a real thing and it's going to be a good thing?
I believe in blockchain. I think that immutable truth and the transparency of the public ledger has a lot of interesting potential. There's some interesting companies using that in re-credentialing, hashed health, and different things. I think it's fascinating. He works at the currency exchange, so he programs where people change or exchange or trade their cryptocurrencies. So I think that's a pretty interesting place to be. It's been a fast growing startup, and he's enjoyed it a lot. I don't know a lot about cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, I know a lot of the old guys, the Warren Buffett people, and you're in Chicago, where my hero idol Jamie Dimon lives. I've had the honor of having lunch with that guy 3 times. Anybody who lives at his office, like Walt Disney lived above the fire station. Jamie Dimon, he always lived above his office in the bank. Just an amazing man, but he's not very impressed with it as a currency yet or anything. So what's next for you guys? Denti.AI, where's it headed now? What's on your to-do list?
We have a big to-do list. We are moving through some of our initial pilots, and we're hoping to get this out to, slowly roll it out to our education, build up our education side in the very near future. And it's been exciting. We have a lot of interest from all different aspects and roadmaps to get into the marketplace. So we have the DSO concept. We also have the EMRs going on. We're able to create analytical dashboards to give practice in analytics into, representing what the images look like and into the treatment plan options, and compare them and help onboard new dentists, and also for individual dentists to see what's going on within their practice. We have educational opportunities from a number of schools that we're pursuing as well that help with calibration and education with the students. And we're continuing to, grow and build our team. And, we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for, Dimitri and Max and Lamilla and a group of our machine learning programmers. And Dimitri is multifaceted as our CEO and the business aspect as well. He's a sommelier. He's had a number of successful startups in Russia, and he's a real fascinating, brilliant individual that's I'm real pleased to have known and be able to work with. So we're real strong and grounded in our validation, our evidence base, and we're sort of moving ahead with our full integration. I think that one of the most exciting thing is our patent pending smart chart. So we have that, which is pretty unique in the industry, to be able to automatically chart and identify the teeth. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, Dimitri's an amazing man. The Russians, they were the first to land something on the moon. They're the first satellite, first woman in space, dog in space. I mean, those guys are just intense. I've lectured over there. I mean, what do you think it is about that Russian culture where they just are mathematicians? I mean, they're just scientists from the word go.
It's hard to say, but I remember Dimitri telling me a story that he was in grade school, and I think George Soros donated computers to his school, and one day he went and took the computer apart and he rebuilt it, and then soon he started teaching his computer teacher how to do computer science. And soon he went off to some special schools to train. His mother was a physician, and he was always interested in healthcare. And he has a really interesting story and what led him all the way up to where he was. And he was in charge of research and development for Huawei software for Russia for a while. He worked his way up to that. And he met Jan LeCun, and he had a discussion over wine about machine learning. And he went back to school to get his PhD in machine learning. And he realized soon that there wasn't a lot of published data in dentistry because he had a root canal and they missed the canal. So he thought, well, I bet you I could figure out how to find the canal if I started addressing what I'm doing in 3D imaging onto teeth. And then he realized that there was more 2D out there currently, and he started focusing on 2D, and he saw in dentistry, without the chart as a basis from which we take our information, we can identify things, but we can't put it into a simple place that we can make sense of it. So that's how he started developing his algorithms to do the automated charting. And it went from there. And I was lucky to have met him when I was visiting Toronto.
Yeah, they asked him, where am I reading this from? It was an interview he had done. And they said, so what is the value proposition? And he says, increased availability of basic automatic service, increased number of pathologies detected earlier, visualization of information for the patient, provide data ownership directly on the cloud and can be forwarded to any dentist. For the dentist, this means, but I've seen this so many times because in my life, I've gone to doctors before and with other people and been a dentist, and like a doctor will be showing something to a family member and they'll say, well, I'm not sure, but it kind of looks like this. But the words they're using aren't very, you're not convincing the patient. And I've seen that so many times where they say, well, to me it looks like this, or we could watch it, or I don't know. I would rather have a measurement. This is, it's 78 degrees outside today. This is a cavity, but you know what I mean? The wishy-washy terms that dentists use, then combine that with the fact that most of them have the personality of a failed geography teacher, it's not going to get treatment done.
Yeah, it's interesting that we from feedback similar to discussions like what you're just discussing now, we're able to have an adjustment in the probability of our findings being present. So the adjustment of the sensitivity. So the sensitivity is how likely we are to find the decay, and the specificity may be the false positives. And we err on false positives because it's easier to remove them, and they do occur, than to avoid them and not see them. But we can look at and do an analysis at 5% probability of a finding being present all the way up to 99%. And we can decide where you want to look. And I think that having that clear vision and that clear decision making, and to feel I'm on solid ground saying, this is what I see. And look, my friend over here is also agreeing with me, or I didn't see this. And what's interesting is we have a good friend of mine, Scott McLean, used this at a keynote lecture. He's from Halifax. I don't know if you've had him on the show. If not, he's fascinating. Does a lot of digital dentistry, lectures a lot with Nobel and the Seattle Study Club, past college football champion, super great guy. He used it in a case where he said, hey, Eric, I know you're doing this AI stuff. Can we use your algorithm? And on this case I did where he treated his football coach. And we found 51% probability of a periapical lesion at the end of an endodontic treatment that wasn't initially seen. And then later, when it failed, it was at 70 in the 70s. So we can track something that we may say, we're going to watch this. But when you watch something, when do you know when it's time to intervene, other than when you have a bombed out tooth? But how about if we said, this is 35% probability of a finding here, and it's asymptomatic, but we checked it, and you're coming at 6 months or a year later, and now it's 75% probability, and we see that it's increased, then we're more likely, with some evidence-based decision-making, to move ahead with treatment that would be accepted. So we can change the way that we do things. And just because we have artificial intelligence or machine learning or this augmented ability to help doesn't mean that we should, or anyone would, go just do treatment that's not necessary. We're still human, and we still have to be there, and we're the final end of the road is with us. And we want to be able to make sure we provide the best care possible. And I think that that's what excites me about this technology, and the ability to, be with you today and share it with your listeners and viewers, and have a discussion with you about it, and raise awareness and really make an impact.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Scott McLean, because he made a course for us on Dental Town for implant dentistry. And it's an online course, and you have an online course. You have Continued Dent, and you got some online courses on there. I think this is another very big thing that's changed in dentistry. And maybe you started the show with, you're worried about the coronavirus is going to start canceling dental meetings. They just canceled a major dental meeting. Did you hear about that Friday?
Yeah. Well, which one? The ADSO meeting or the? Yeah. We were supposed to be at that this week. Yes. Yeah,
that was in where? Vancouver?
It was in Washington. They had the Pacific Dental meeting just recently in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's you would imagine it would be kind of nice to have these online meetings, and other than that interaction with people, which I love. I love meeting people, learning what they're doing, understanding, being exposed to new things. There's something we can't ever replace with that. But I think a lot of times you could do things like you're suggesting online and have a great experience, and it's convenient, right? You don't have to travel.
So how is Continued Dent doing? Are you seeing that trend where people are wanting to do it online?
I'll tell you, with Continued Dent, I put it up there and I got it out, and I got involved with Denti.AI, and I really haven't promoted it. It took me 3 or 4 years to put together. I have a manual, a book, and I had to sort of put it on the side.
So, but what is it? It's an online course. It's 15 modules?
It's an online education course to allow. I was working. I have many referring doctors, and I was working in my area, and I was seeing that patients would see advertisements on TV and go to some of the big all-on-4 centers, and they would often be patients in practices with dentists that were there for 20 years. And dentists would say, oh, my patient had this done. And the patient would say, well, I didn't know my dentist could do this work. So I tried to break the whole concept down I simplified it into, how do you make a complete denture? Listen, orthodontic surgery was kind of where do you put the incisal edge, right? Tooth to lip, and where's the midline, and what's the occlusion like? And it was all based on that prosthetic component of denture design. So I broke it down, and I broke down some of the barriers so that people would be comfortable treating 1 or 2 patients, a year, but they were trusted patients. So we say we care for you and we care about you because we know who you are. And I educated the staff in the office. I provided marketing materials for them, and I helped them walk through each step of the way. So I got very aware of how to do the workup, the prosthetic workup, and also help them to become exposed to it and feel comfortable taking care of the patients. It was from the beginning, from the introduction, all the way to the follow-ups and the hygiene and the maintenance and the schedules and so forth. So it was sort of in line with my education past, because I've been in academics and private practice. So it's been sort of, it was really interesting doing that. I learned a lot myself, and I've helped a lot of offices, I hope, in the area that I get to work with on that. So that's how it came about and what it is.
You could put some of that on Dental Town if you've already done the work.
I'd love to.
Yeah.
I'd love to. It's just, so I have it there, and I just haven't really, we'll talk about that. I'd love to talk to you more about it. It's there, and it works great.
So, last, I know you guys got to go. We pass an hour. You're an oral surgeon. Or are you getting, what does the oral surgeons think of all this?
Well, I think that it's fascinating because it's, I see it more as like I mentioned before, a window into this whole opportunity to work with our medical colleagues and bring some new technology, bring dental awareness to what's happening in medicine. I spoke. I was lucky enough to be included in the last AI Med conference out at Laguna. So it was kind of nice to be at Laguna Beach. And I got to meet some really fascinating people that were doing, real game-changing things in medicine. And to be able to represent dentistry and talk about the impact of oral health care, what we chew and what we eat affects, vitamin B12, albumin levels, folic acid. And we're talking more about, acid reflux and Barrett's esophagitis. We're talking about the gut biome. One of our advisors has a machine learning Kevin Woods, he's a gastroenterologist, has a machine learning company, and they're doing some fascinating things. And we're talking about linking what goes in your mouth to your gut. And we know that these things now impact age-related illnesses. They impact our health and our overall systemic health and wellness. So I think those things really get me going. And I think that coming into the market and being a leader and having sound algorithms and really making an impact in dentistry can have those big impacts, because one day we're going to be looking at different payer opportunities, outcome payments. I see DentaQuest has a number of studies that they've come out with and papers that are quite interesting in that area. So there's this whole revolution going on, and it's exciting, and I'm glad to be in it a little bit, or at least aware of what's happening and being able to meet the people that are helping to, implement it. Yeah, so that's kind of where I see the future going.
Such huge potential with predictive analytics and oral systemic health links out there with AI. It's really exciting to kind of be on the cusp.
Well, Eric, Jeremy, any final words?
No, I give us a shot. Go on there, try it out. If people have any interesting aspects, they can always email me if they want. I'm sure you share our information somewhere for them to see. Thanks to you and all your listeners and viewers for the opportunity to make a big impact in dentistry and help our patients and implement change. And, I just have to say thank you for taking the time to have us on here, because I love being on this show. I can't believe I'm on the show, but it's pretty amazing. Thank you for all you've done.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you for coming on the show. Have a great day.